What if a narrow waterway, only 34 kilometers wide, could shake the entire world economy? The Strait of Hormuz is the only sea route from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, it is just 21 miles wide.
This strait sees 23 lakh trade from the global dating and achieve.
Many major economies depend heavily on this route. If it were closed, prices would skyrocket. Because of its strategic value, the Strait of Hormuz is also one of the most militarized waterways on Earth. Tensions rise as Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz, a chokehold on 20% of global oil. If the Strait of Hormuz were blocked, global trade would be severely disrupted. Oil tankers would be trapped. The Strait of Hormuz may be small on the map, but importance to the waterway becomes a critical battleground. The Strait of Hormuz, a global oil choke point. Tensions in the Persian Gulf are rising.
In the vast map of the world, there exists a narrow waterway that holds immense power over the global economy. A place so small, yet so critical, that any disruption there could send shockwaves across continents. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow maritime corridor between Iran and Oman that serves as the main gateway between the Persian Gulf and the open oceans. Every day, thousands of massive oil tankers carrying energy supplies pass through this narrow passage. These ships transport the fuel that powers industries, airplanes, cars, and entire economies. But what happens if this critical route is suddenly closed? What if war breaks out between regional and global powers like Iran, the United States, and Israel? The Strait of Hormuz could instantly become the center of one of the most dangerous geopolitical crises in modern history. In this documentary, we will explore why this narrow waterway is so important, why major powers are constantly watching it, and how it could play a decisive role in any conflict involving Iran, Israel, and the United States. To understand the importance of the Strait of Hormuz, we must first understand its geography. The Strait of Hormuz lies between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. It connects the Persian Gulf, where some of the world's largest oil reserves are located, with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea, which lead into the Indian Ocean. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is only about 33 kilometers wide, or roughly 21 miles. However, the actual shipping lanes used by all tankers are much narrower. International maritime rules divide the strait into two shipping channels, each only about 2 miles wide, with a small buffer zone between them. This means that enormous oil tankers worth hundreds of millions of dollars must pass through extremely narrow lanes. Because of this geography, the strait becomes one of the most vulnerable maritime choke points in the world. Any disruption, whether caused by warships, mines, or missiles, could easily halt traffic through the passage. And when traffic stops here, the consequences are felt across the entire world. The Strait of Hormuz is often described as the most important oil transit choke point on the planet. Every single day, approximately 20 million barrels of oil pass through this narrow corridor. That represents nearly 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption. To understand how massive this number is, imagine 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil used anywhere on Earth traveling through this single waterway. But oil is not the only energy resource transported here. Large shipments of liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG, pass through the strait as well. Qatar, one of the world's largest exporters of natural gas, relies heavily on this route to deliver energy to Asia and Europe. If the Strait of Hormuz were blocked even for a short period, global energy prices would skyrocket. All markets are extremely sensitive to supply disruptions. Even rumors of instability in the region can cause oil prices to jump dramatically. A complete closure of the strait could trigger one of the largest energy shocks in modern history. Many countries across the world depend heavily on oil and gas transported through the Strait of Hormuz. The largest consumers of this energy are located in Asia. Countries such as China, India, Japan, and South Korea import massive amounts of oil from the Middle East. Much of that oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. China, the world's largest energy consumer, relies on this route to power its industries and factories. India also imports a significant portion of its energy through this passage. Even European economies are indirectly affected by the stability of this route. When oil prices rise globally, fuel costs increase everywhere, transportation becomes more expensive. Food prices rise due to higher shipping and production costs, and inflation spreads through economies worldwide. This is why governments across the globe closely monitor the security of this narrow waterway. Because what happens in the Strait of Hormuz does not stay in the Middle East, it affects the entire global economy. Because of its enormous strategic value, the Strait of Hormuz is also one of the most heavily militarized waterways on Earth. Iran controls the northern coastline of the strait. It also controls several islands near the shipping lanes. Over the years, Iran has developed military capabilities designed specifically to control or disrupt traffic in this waterway. These include fast attack boats, naval mines, anti-ship missiles, submarines, and coastal missile batteries. Iran's military strategy focuses on asymmetric warfare, meaning it can challenge much larger naval forces using smaller but effective weapons. On the other side, the United States maintains a strong military presence in the region. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, regularly patrols the Persian Gulf. American aircraft carriers, destroyers, and surveillance aircraft frequently operate near the Strait of Hormuz. Their mission is to ensure the freedom of navigation and prevent any attempt to block the waterway. This makes the strait a constant point of tension between Iran and Western powers. Although Israel does not border the Strait of Hormuz directly, the waterway still plays an important role in Israeli strategic calculations. Israel views Iran as one of its main regional rivals. Any escalation between Israel and Iran could quickly involve other powers, including the United States. If conflict were to spread across the region, Iran could attempt to use the Strait of Hormuz as leverage against its opponents. By threatening to disrupt global energy supplies, Iran could increase pressure on Western economies and governments. This possibility makes the strait a key factor in any large-scale conflict involving Iran and its adversaries. Military planners across the region constantly consider scenarios in which the Strait of Hormuz becomes a battlefield. The possibility of the Strait of Hormuz being blocked is one of the biggest concerns in global energy security. There are several ways such a disruption could occur. Naval mines could be deployed in the shipping lanes. Missile strikes could target all tankers. Military ships could physically block the narrow channels. Even limited attacks could create enough danger to force shipping companies to stop sending tankers through the strait. Insurance companies might refuse to cover vessels operating in a war zone. If shipping traffic stops, millions of barrels of oil per day would suddenly disappear from global markets. The result would be a rapid surge in oil prices. Energy shortages could spread across major economies. Stock markets might fall. Inflation could increase dramatically. In short, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz could trigger a major global economic crisis. Tensions in the Strait of Hormuz are not new. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, both sides attacked all tankers in what became known as the Tanker War. Dozens of commercial ships were damaged or destroyed. Navies from several countries, including the United States, eventually stepped in to protect shipping. Since then, the region has experienced numerous incidents involving seized tankers, naval confrontations, and military threats. Although the strait has never been fully closed, it has repeatedly come close to becoming a flashpoint for larger conflicts. The Strait of Hormuz may appear small on the map, but its importance to the world cannot be overstated. It is the narrow gateway through which a large portion of the world's energy supply flows. It is a place where geography, economics, and military power intersect. And in times of geopolitical tension, it becomes one of the most critical strategic locations on Earth. In any conflict involving Iran, the United States, or Israel, the Strait of Hormuz could quickly become the center of global attention. Because whoever controls this narrow waterway holds enormous influence over the global economy. And as long as the world depends on oil and gas from the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz will remain one of the most important and closely watched waterways in the world.